Huddersfield Town got shafted on the day, didn't we?
When you get even Leeds fans saying that we should have had 2 penalties, then you know pretty much it should have been 2 penalties.
There's no reason why we can't, go on and do quite well next year. I'm Matt, I'm the host of the podcast Andy Takes That Chance.
My name's Richard Kosmala. Andy Takes That Chance podcast is, what about? 1983 was my first game and we got promoted on that first match, and I said to my dad, is it always like this? And many years later, I learned there's more downs than ups probably, but a long time.
1989 was my first game, so as a young kid, It's been a phenomenal season, everybody was free, unwanted, free to a good home, if you like. The entire transfer budget was zero in the summer. And they've all fitted together superbly. We've got out and got good characters, great characters like Tom Lees, Lee Nichols, Levi Colwill from Chelsea. And they've all fitted into a really good squad, and, everybody gets on with each other. They're all on holiday with each other now. And you can see that it's a really tight-knit squad. And I think that togetherness took them a long way, and they were superb and they were fun to watch as well along the way.
Wow, what a ride it was. Yeah, unbelievable. Expectations were so low, not just for them, from like the pundits, but from his own fans, really. If you'd have watched our podcast in July, August, many of us were saying going down. But fantastic. I think the thing for me wasn't just that we did so well in the league. It was we got our pride back. I think we'd lost our DNA from the Premier League. We had quite a few players who stayed to the bitter end, earning the money, not even getting anywhere near the first team, not interested in. I think like anywhere, if you've got a workplace where there's 4 or 5 people are not, bothered and just doing the minimum, it's not a happy place. So we've got hungry players, we've got players, they probably won't win any awards for like sexy footballers, as Mr. Viala used to say, but wow, they give us the pride back and so near from an incredible promotion.
No, it was a really weird occasion. I'm sure a lot of Huddersfield fans will agree. It was strange. There was a really strange sort of eerie build up to it where it was all very quiet. I don't think any Huddersfield fans really fancied it, in truth. And then on the day, it was a really dull affair. Neither team really did an awful lot, in all honesty, but Notts Forest got the luck and we didn't at the end of the day. So draw a line, move on.
Someone said to me, I bet you'd rather lost 4-0 than lose like that, but I think it'll always, it doesn't really matter they've gone up, but for me it'll always have an asterisk next to it and that as well. And we've still got to score them penalties if they're given and that as well, so that's no kind of done deal as well. But it's I'm taking a lot of comfort from the fact it was very controversial, and most neutrals would, when you get even Leeds fans saying that we should have had 2 penalties, then pretty much there should have been 2 penalties.
Everyone's seen how they really well. To be blunt, Huddersfield Town got shafted on the day, didn't we? So, but I think the thing with that is you can either let that ruin you and hang a like a cloud over you for, going into the new season, or you can just draw a line and move on. And there's a world where you can use that as fuel or an anger, if you like, to to be positive next season and go into it and really try and go one better. But as long as we don't let it drag us down next season, I think that's the most important thing. But
if you'd have asked me about Carlos Cobra and pretty much most of the Town fan base 12 months ago, most of would have been quite happy to see him on his way. But now it's incredible what he's done. I think what I like about what he's done, he's kind of tailored his style from what we saw the season before, where we were very kind of possession based and very kind of maybe even Bielsa style kind of football. But this time it was so different, and while we probably weren't the most exciting team to watch, you've got to admire what he did with a group of players really, and that as well.
I think Lee Bromby, the head of football operations, is a bit of an unsung hero as well in what he's done. Ex-Sheffield United, and he's the one who's really gone out and highlighted a number of these players, and Carlos has signed off on it. It's a real team effort at Huddersfield, and I think they can all be really pleased with what they've done last season. So fingers crossed, moving forward we can keep it up. Penny down football, we're very defensive, so very structured, so maybe it's a bit more Costa del Sol Campbell, if you like. There you go. But it's based on a solid defence, and we just look to counter really. We'll Lewis O'Brien described it quite well as we're like a sponge. We soak it up and then we wring teams out, if you like.
Charisma. I think Yorkshire folk always like a Neil Warnock type, Peter Jackson for us. A tub thumper, a guy who'll be, but I think gradually as the season went on and obviously the results kept coming, and Carlos and the fan base really connected. Obviously results really helped, but there was a connection there and that as well. And while he was never kind of a Mourinho type, storming on the pitch and what have you at the end, I think the club realised that, the fan base do like it. So it's almost like they had a word in his ear, come on, celebrate with the fans at the end. So, but incredible job is done, because if you look at our squad of players, again, with no disrespect, there's not many of that at the start of the season other clubs would have wanted.
In terms of them the fans and the board getting on with each other, the coin it Terrier spirit, and I think from outside the club looking in, everyone sort of looks at it and thinks that's a bit cheesy, and maybe it is, but it's just really a symbol of the unity between the fans and the board and the players. And I think what we've seen is when they're all in sync and pulling in the same direction, good things can happen.
Dean Hall obviously is back, has nearly kind of gone through the retake of it, if you like, and that as well. And Dean's always had a big connection with the fan base as well. I know there's kind of a few people still maybe not sure on his kind of motives, but for me, Dean's always pretty much had Huddersfield Town, at heart and that as well. So there is that, connection now as well. And last week there was a bit of communication released by the club about how many season cards we've sold, and the big thing to come out of that wasn't really kind of the numbers, but for me was what Dean was saying. Was kind of mentioning about the Peterborough playoff loss when and then the season after we went up, and obviously he's not saying we're going to go up, but it was nice to hear that kind of hunger that Dean's got. And it was almost like, to me, this is kind of unfinished business, and while it's going to be so tough to repeat what we've done kind of the season just gone, I think when you've got an owner that's up for it and talking about using the disappointment to fire us onto better things, it's exciting to hear.
Good things happened in 2017 and last year, and being a close-knit club, I think, especially when you're a community club like Huddersfield, it means a lot to the fans, and they jump on board a lot easier with situations like that, rather than feeling excommunicated, if you like. So yeah, it's good stuff. We've got a couple that potentially could be on their way. We're a selling club. We're not under any illusions that we'll be strengthening with £1 million signings to go one better next year. If somebody comes in for Lewis O'Brien, he's probably going to be on his way. Same with Harry Toffolo. They're both really key players, great players for us. And hopefully not great players for someone else. So
I think the good thing is that a lot of people on the outside looking, I think 12 months ago there wouldn't be many people rushing to sign for Huddersfield, because you're not going to get rich, and they'd probably looked at it and think there's a manager who'll be out by October, November. So what's kind of in it for me, really?
We've got a bit of a checkered history in the transfer market. Usually when we spend money we don't do that well, so if the cheaper the better as far as we're concerned. In terms of the squad, we've lost Levi Colwill. He's gone back to Chelsea. He's too good to come back to the Championship. So we've brought in Will Boyle. Will Boyle's known to us. He was in our academy. He's local. Seems to be RMO does that. But he's a great leader, good character. So we're hopeful that he will do well. We lost Naby Sarr, so there's possibly a centre back still short that we need. Jonathan Hogg's been moving back, so Carlos sees him as more of a Mascherano, or Jonathan Hogscarano, if you like, at the back, rather than midfielder. So there's possibly a Hogg successor we need to look for, and Fraser Campbell's left, so we're probably a striker light as well.
From the outside looking in, everyone's seen what a stunning job Carlos Corberan's done, the way we've developed players. Lewis O'Brien, who'll probably not be with us start next season, but obviously came through our academy and has gone on to better things. Well, hopefully stays with us, but unlikely. Harry Toffolo, a guy came in from Lincoln, and another guy who probably move on. So I think, in other words, I think there's a pathway. I mentioned there before about Levi Colwill, so I think he'll get a lot of players, especially we've seemed to have a good rep with Chelsea. We've had one or two come from there, loanees and things like that as well, and obviously come back in as better players than when they've been at Huddersfield. So for me, that stands us in good stead, really. And obviously linked with Manchester City starlet, as they say in the press, but who knows if that's true. But yeah, I think we're a decent attraction for players, and Carlos Corberan's just made players so much better since he's been there.
So Jack Redoni was linked, I think, in the Sun newspaper. He fits exactly the profile of what Huddersfield look for: a young, hungry midfielder from the lower leagues looking to improve and prove a point, higher up the league. He's definitely the type of player that Huddersfield would look for. Whether there's truth in it, we can only speculate. But yes, he would be the type of player that we would probably look at to bring in. And I would probably think he would be a Lewis O'Brien replacement if he was to come in.
As we sit here, was it June 20th, I think, today, and that as well, it's I'm glad that we've just kind of got our spirit back, and we've got foundations to build on. I mean, it's an obvious thing to say we've lost in the playoff final, but it's hard to explain for people that kind of don't know us how much it was broken before. We had, I mentioned earlier, we had players who, didn't care that from the Premier League on big contracts, we had to wait till the bitter end till they went. So the foundations of a great house being built, and while, it's going to be a big blow if we do lose O'Brien and maybe Toffolo, I'm, very optimistic, especially mentioned there, Dean coming back. He seems to have got his mojo back, Dean Oil, Carlos, and some of them guys who've tasted the bitter pill of, playoff final defeat, they're not going to be wanting to hang about again next season in the bottom half. So that gives me a lot of heart.
I do kind of look into the data and analytics side sometimes. And if you do look into that, then Huddersfield probably overachieved a little bit last season, especially when you look at, I know a lot of people don't buy into the expected goals and whatnot, because a lot of the data isn't always up to date. And players do improve from previous seasons. But I think when you look at us overall, we've possibly overachieved next year. So I think in my head, I'm thinking we might plateau a little bit, but one or two additions, clever additions, maybe a Premier League loan. James McAtee's been mentioned. Again, don't know if there's any solid foundations to that. But if we brought in one or two exciting attacking players, then there's no reason why we can't go on and do quite well next year. What quite well looks like, we'll probably know come September, I think. What game we're looking forward to most next season? I'd probably say Sheffield United, Johnny, and we can have a pint. Why not?
Blackpool away. For obvious reasons. We got it on a Tuesday night last year, and it was in September, so we were lucky really. We're kind of the back end. We had a nice hot sunny day, and obviously we give them a bit of a turning over as well, and we stopped over. So for me, it's always got to be Blackpool away, and a lot of town fans will be wanting it on a Saturday, and the only reason for that really, because all the fun that you can have there. So seaside away, Blackpool.
I'd say 9th next season. I think that we were probably a couple of players short, but again, I might change my mind come September once the transfer window is shut. But as it stands at the moment, I would probably say 9th looking upwards.
Yeah, I mean, the fact we sold 15,500 season cards, which compared to last season is so much more up. It's I think the optimism is there from all to see from the public of Huddersfield and the surrounding area. If we kept everyone that we had now, it's so difficult to answer this and that as well. Again, maybe 8th, 7th, but just flirting with the playoffs really. I think the best thing about the Championship is, I think someone said to me the other day, the price up Huddersfield, there's more chance of going down and then getting promoted with the odds. But isn't that the beauty of the Championship? We don't know what's going to happen. That's why we love it, innit? Would have thought Huddersfield and Luton had been the top 6. So honestly, nothing had surprised me, man, if we were like down the bottom half as well. But I'm not answering your question. I'm like a politician's answer. So I'm going to go for a nice 8th finish, but hopefully having a nice little flirt and dare it to dream again.
Up the town.